Hey there, everybody. I'm coming at you today with an off-stream segment. As you can see, there is no chat, there is no alerts, there are no dono goals. There is nothing but me and you, an off-stream segment. Who would have thought I'd make one of these? Well, I am. Because unfortunately, before I could do any segments today on my stream, I ended up getting hit with a little bit of nausea, and I ended up throwing up. So I'm glad I ended stream early. It was definitely the right decision, but now I gotta do an off-stream segment. And I decided that this would be the best thing to do it on. I don't think I need to introduce Dave Rubin. I think most of you guys are quite aware of who Dave Rubin is. He is a conservative commentator from... I think he's Canadian. Isn't he Canadian? God, all the right-wing figures in America that are the most popular all seem to be Canadian. Isn't that weird? It's almost as if we ought to be asking the Canada question. No, but seriously, he is a right-wing political commentator. And what makes him a little bit more unique from most men who do right-wing political commentary is that he is gay, and he is married to another man, and as he just announced, has 2 children on the way. I guess it's a surrogacy type thing, like surrogate children. Cool, congratulations to them. Awesome. Seems like baby 1, I guess the babies aren't named yet, which would make sense. It looks like they've got a while left in the oven. The first baby is expected 8/22/22, and the next one 10/14/22. Hey, at least they'll get like 2 months, a little over 2 months to actually be 2 months, a little over 2 months to get used to having the first kid before the second one comes along. Anyway, I'm happy for them. Okay, Dave Rubin is a deplorable piece of shit. I know nothing about Dave Rubin's husband. He could, for all I know, just be a completely cool dude. I don't know if he's like a political right-wing commentator, if he's just a normal guy, but regardless, I'm happy for them. Here's the thing, though. As you can already see, the audience of Dave Rubin are not particularly happy about this, because you have to understand, when we talk about the alt-right rabbit hole, when we talk about people getting radicalized into the far right, we almost always target the conversation on a very specific demographic who gets radicalized by a very specific type of content. And it's usually straight, cis white boys who are into video games and nerd culture who are being appealed to with edgy humor. That's usually like the demographic and the main like group we talk about when we talk about the alt-right rabbit hole and how people get radicalized to the right. However, and I think this is a big problem, the conversation very commonly gets moved away from the very real right-wing radicalization that exists for, and specifically targeted at, POC and marginalized people online. Like just broadly, right? So like there's obviously creators who do things very similar to what Dave Rubin does, but for like insert POC, marginalized group, whatever, right? Go down the line, and you can sort of tell, right? And I try not to, when I argue against these figures and I'm just destroying their arguments, I try not to like bring up that they use their identity as a shield against criticism while also using it as sort of like a sort of a pick-me pass, I guess is the only word I can think to use for it, on the right, in order to get, some level of extra attention on the right, because it's some level of, it's optically good for the right to have people who are gay or trans or POC saying, no, the right aren't racist, the left are the real racists, because the fact that the right and conservatives are the real bigots has been, it's become a lot more well believed, broadly believed as time goes by, and conservatives want to fight that conception. It's scary for them. The idea of society recognizing them as the bigots that they are is very scary to them, because that can prevent them from gaining power in the future to, implement bigoted policies. With that said, though, Dave Rubin has gone on and on and on about how specifically the right is accepting, notably accepting of like gay people and just LGBT people, POC, no matter what they believe and who they are. That has been the most common talking point from Dave Rubin, and yet his entire audience seems to have betrayed him here. So how did the tolerant right, as he liked to say, turn on him? Well, thankfully we got our boy Know Nothing here, Know Nothing TV, who is made a good little thread about all of this, and it should be a fun little read. I never thought leopards would eat leopards. I never thought leopards would eat my face, sobs man who voted for the leopards eating people's faces party. And then, as you can see, just a collage of hate tweets, just a collage of the most hateful replies. Let's read through some of these. I'm sure one of these clips will get one of these audio lines will get clipped and used against me on Twitter, I'm sure. Richard says, don't call yourself a conservative if you celebrate this. How is this not illegal? Imagine robbing a mother of her child after 9 months, but it's okay because you paid her tens of thousands. I couldn't imagine growing up without my mom. Sad emoji. Adoption not good enough for you? Better to rent a woman for 9+ months? What else are women even for if not to serve the wishes of men? I feel like it might be worth pointing out here, by the way, a lot of these comments are on a Dave Rubin video. Dave Rubin is explicitly conservative, anti-feminist, anti-progressive left-wing creator. Explicitly so. He said as much for many years. Is it maybe funny that either there are a lot of TERFs in his audience, demonstrating that TERFs are just on the far right, or that these aren't TERFs, these are just far-right people commenting things that sound exactly like what a TERF would say, which basically just means TERFs think exactly like right-wingers. Regardless, I feel like a lot of these comments, especially the really weird pseudo-feminist, pseudo-woke comments, like, surrogacy, so you're just using a woman's body as a baby-making factory for money, and it's like, okay, it ain't that deep. Yeah, I mean, it's exactly how TERFs think. I know this is my problem, but I can't help but feel really weird about this, and I'm even trying to be open-minded. You know, Gray? Thank you for trying to be open-minded. How is this dude conservative? Well, I mean, you seem to follow him, right? Oh, wow, 359 likes on that how is this dude conservative comment. This ain't it, Chief. Feel bad for the kids. 65 likes. We got a Jordan Peterson lobster profile picture here. We got Optimus Alvius. Yeah, you'll find that anyone who's a fan of Jordan Peterson, Dave Rubin, and Ben Shapiro and regularly watches them will probably have a really LARPy weird Twitter name. It's pretty common. Wow, this makes it seem like a business. Oh, here we go. Dave, I love you, brother, but not this. Do what you want, but a child needs a mother and a father. Jesus. Wow, this makes it seem like a business. So we're renting wombs, eggs, and selling babies now? How is this okay? Wow, never knew renting a woman's womb was checks notes conservative. It's true, all of it. Paying for 2 babies, renting wombs for 9 months. I'm happy for you as a couple, but also can't help wondering why isn't the mother in the picture? It's crazy how they make up do they there's nothing in this post that indicates the mother isn't in the picture. For all they know, the mom could just be Dave Rubin's sister, you know? That's been a thing that happens. Wait, would that be inbreeding though? I mean, not if, that would be pretty weird. I guess not if it came from Dave Rubin's husband though, right? I feel like that's been a thing where it's because you want both, where some couples that can't have a child that go for surrogacy will want to have DNA from both children from both parents in the child. So the way around doing that is having the non-related partner donate either a sperm or an egg to a related sibling of their partner, so that even though it's not their partner's DNA, it's a mix. I don't know. I think that's a thing. I swear it is. Comment down below if it's not, or if it is. Tell me if I'm right or wrong. Okay, I'm literally going off of something I think I know. Life comes at you fast. Milo on the Rubin Report. Oh yeah, you guys remember when Milo Yiannopoulos and Dave Rubin talked on Dave Rubin's show? That was back in 2016, maybe 2015. I remember back then Dave Rubin and Milo Yiannopoulos were seen as these shining intellectuals by the anti-SJW community. This video, if I remember correctly, got tens of millions of views and would not leave my recommended. It would not leave my fucking recommended. And then Milo, I guess, what is this, Telegram? I don't know, some Nazi alternative site. I guess took a screenshot of the tweet and said, "Disgusting. They should both be executed." For those of you guys that don't know, Milo Yiannopoulos has claimed that he's gone through gay conversion therapy and is no longer an, and I quote, homosexualist. So that gives you some insight onto that. Reminds me of the time one of Dave Rubin's guests freaked out after finding out he was gay.
You can't even have a preference around a liberal. A liberal homosexual says, well, you should accept my lifestyle. But if you say, well, I accept your lifestyle, I just don't want my kid to be one. Well, you're a bit. Well, wait a minute. I accept the fact that you want to be homeless. I don't want my kid to be homeless. I accept the fact that you want to smoke crack. I don't want my kid to smoke crack.
What do we do from here? What do we do from here? Like, I think most people, I know a lot of my audience is going to hear you, really hear you, and go, this is the type of stuff that I think needs to be heard more. And I think that the group of people that are talking about this stuff is actually growing. I do see this. At the same time, the people who don't want to hear us are getting more and more hysterical because that's all they got left.
Even said they hate Dave Rubin because he's a gay man with the wrong opinion. Dave Rubin is gay? No! He got a husband? I did not know. I was in his presence.
Oh, this is...
I didn't know.
Who is this guy? Jew gay. Dude, like, he's got Nazis in his chat. David Rubenstein, gay married. He's got Nazis in his chat. Gay Jew too. Oh my God, they're all like a bunch. His husband is black. No, he's not. We just saw the picture. What the fuck? I mean, I don't expect Burger Kings in this gentleman's chat to be the most reliable source of information, though. If I'm going to give my own personal opinion, I don't rely on the credibility of Burger Kings. I think I'll pass on that one. Oh boy, who is this guy? I want to cover him one day.
I sat down with him. Why did y'all tell me before I went on the show? Oh, Steven, why would you send me this? Oh my God, Steven, you ruined my day.
I should make it very clear here, by the way. Dave Rubin isn't just a spineless coward because he has an inability to really withhold any pushback on any opinion that he could possibly disagree with. I mean, he'll virtue signal all the livelong day on his show about how the left is too radical, the left has gone too far. But when he's been pushed back on in the past in person, he's never been able to hold his ground. He's always ceded to the pushback, always, every time. He's a notorious fence-sitting spineless coward. That's always been the biggest criticism. Even from his own fans, even the ones that aren't outwardly homophobic towards him, seem to all agree that he's super fence-sittery and spineless. Now, this is not just pathetic, and he's not just a spineless coward for that. He's also a spineless coward because what he is doing here is not all that different from what Blair White did. It's starting to pick up kind of a consistency here, right? Do you guys remember? Well, I'm talking to you guys as if you can actually like respond to me in chat. I really need to get the streamer brain out of me, or maybe I need to keep it. Maybe I need to continue to let the streamer parasite take over my brain, so I'll continue to be an entertaining, funny streamer. Maybe it'll make me better at this. I don't know. Anyway, for those of you guys that don't remember, Blair White and Karen Borochenko did a duo like 2v2 debate against John Doyle, Nazi, and a woman named Lauren Witzke, Nazi. And they were the idea was like they're all four conservatives, but like Blair White and Karen Borochenko, and Blair White are like a little bit more socially progressive than John Doyle and Lauren Witzke, to say the least. Like Lauren is obviously, Blair is obviously trans, so I don't think, I'm going to assume she's a little bit less maybe a grain less transphobic than the other crazy lady. And then obviously John Doyle's a full-on Nazi. You guys are probably pretty familiar with his beliefs. Regardless, though, as this debate goes on, there's a point where Lauren Witzke starts saying to Blair that she should just grow out her beard and just live as a man and be who she doesn't say she for the pronouns for Blair, who she truly is, and just goes on a very long, hateful rant about how she's a predator and she would be better off just growing out her beard and telling everybody that they should never want to be trans. And Blair White starts responding with not like aggro at like the horrible things that are being said to her. Instead starts saying, I'm not like the other trans people you're thinking of, though. I know what you think I'm like, but I'm not like those other trans people. I'd understand you saying this to me if I was like those crazy trans activists, but I'm not like them. And Lauren Witzke does not care. And Blair White doesn't seem to understand. Yeah, the right does hate LGBT people. They always have. The people on the right who have been amiable to you have only been amiable to you insofar as they are able to gain something from you. And this is where I bring it back to the existence of a rabbit hole for marginalized groups. If you are transgender and you go online, most notably if you're a trans woman, and you go online on YouTube, the largest video sharing platform in the world besides maybe TikTok, maybe it is bigger than TikTok though, and you are looking for a large trans creator, which is not a very far-fetched hypothetical that I'm bringing up here, like a trans youth seeking out a large trans YouTuber to look up to? Huh, that could never happen. Well, there's a pretty good chance the first figure they stumble across is going to be Blair White. Now, Blair White outwardly does everything possible to appeal to your average LGBT teen. She talks about tea drama with like the makeup community. She's gotten involved in the James Charles and like the whole like I don't know this part of the internet, but I've seen her involvement in it. This is a very LGBT, very young teen and trans oriented community, and that is where she's siphoning a significant amount of her audience from, and where I'm talking about Blair White specifically, but obviously we'll expand to other examples, but that is where Blair White gets a lot of her audience from. And a lot of these young trans teens discovering a content creator like Blair White probably don't even realize Blair White is spreading like transphobic right-wing propaganda. They're probably stumbling across her content and thinking, oh, thank God, not everybody will hate trans people if every trans person acts like Blair White. Because they see, how well the right responds to her, and they think that's how that's how a good trans person behaves and looks and acts and speaks and believes. That's how you're going to be accepted by society. And Blair White teaches an entire audience of LGBT fans that the way to be a good LGBT person is to appease the right, to not be a crazy trans activist or an SJW or a gay person who throws it into people's faces or pushes it onto people or whatever they like to say. They've got all sorts of different words for it depending on what the group is. For gay people, it's like, oh, you're not pushing it on me, you're not doing it around me. That's what conservatives will say is a good gay person. Trans people, not too far off, they'll say something quite similar. Don't do it around me, don't push it on me, don't force me to change my language. If it comes to like POC, they'll be like, I don't care what anybody looks like, but I'm not going to change my speech. There's no such thing as racism. We all live in a meritocracy. There's no systemic racism anymore. There's never been systemic racism, and if there ever was, then it's long gone now, and it was so long ago it has no effect on the world anymore, so there's no reason to talk about it. Yeah. There's a very real rabbit hole of right-wing content that is looking to suck in people who are already part of marginalized groups, and hell, people who are part of marginalized groups who are already pretty left-wing and woke-minded. We can look at the growing prevalence of like the Black separatist movement in the online left right now. No doubt, like when I go over and I look at that like content, I look at their messaging, their posts, their propaganda, it is, no different than Nazi propaganda. It's no different than like the propaganda Nazis will spread online. It's lacking the polish and effectiveness the right tends to have with their propaganda, because the right are propaganda masters. I don't think anyone can disagree with that. But it's pretty much indistinguishable from Nazi propaganda, besides just a few word switches, replace Jew with white, replace like white with black, and you basically have it. You basically just have like, if you interchange white and Jewish and white and black, you get Nazi propaganda and like Hotep black separatist propaganda just based on changing those words. It's really crazy. And so when you look at that kind of stuff, it becomes clear to you that there is an entire genre, an entire radicalized sort of cult of people online looking to radicalize people who you would hope, or you would think, based on, let's be real, stereotyping, would almost by default fall into better political positions than not. But that is very much not true. That assumption is the product of bias on your part, if you believe that. Believe it or not, yeah, POC, LGBT people, indigenous people, insert marginalized group, I don't need to go on listing, are just as vulnerable to the, I won't say just as, but close to, at least, as vulnerable to the propaganda of the far right as the most privileged members of society can be. Because the right is just great at propaganda, and they know how to get them young. Here's another clip as well, which seems to be I think this is the Ben Shapiro, Dave Rubin gay wedding clip.
Will you bake Rubin a wedding cake? Okay, so, I mean, my answer is...
Well, I'm married already.
Right, he's married already.
But an anniversary, it was my anniversary last week. An anniversary cake would have been nice.
Right, so the answer is no. And the reason I won't is because as a religious Jew, I do not participate in activities that I believe are sinful.
And he would have done it kosher, the whole thing, man.
Yeah, now I feel bad.
He would have done it for you.
You got me this close.
Putting that aside, you can't have David's kosher cake now. If we were having an anniversary party, would you come? If I was inviting all the crew that we all know, and we were just an anniversary party, we're just having a party, and I'll even throw in some kosher food for you to make sure you don't have to bring your own food.
You know, honestly, I'd have to think about it. I'd have to think about it in the same way.
So that's interesting to me, because that's a different thing.
Well, not really, because again,
Dude, look at this. Look at how, like, imagine having to sit with your friend. Like, this is why when conservatives say, why do lefties always cut, like, ties with family and friends over political disagreement? It's for reasons like this. It's because at the end of the day, if you're a lefty, and God forbid if you're like a gay lefty and you're friends with a conservative and you're trying not to let your political disagreements get in the way of your friendship, inevitably situations like this are going to come up. Your friend is going to be morally opposed to your marriage, to your relationship, morally opposed to your right to live your life as you should. And sure, it may be his opinion, but if you found out that your best friend thought you were a mentally deranged degenerate, would you want to keep being best friends with that person? This right here is a message to the right-wingers that watch my content from time to time. I see a lot of comments like, why is the left always trying to push their beliefs on people? Why do people on the left and liberals and leftists always cut family and friends ties over political disagreements? Because of stuff like this. If you're like gay or LGBT or God forbid, maybe if you're POC and you've got a friend who's kind of racist and conservative, things like this are going to happen, and it's going to make that friendship really tough for a lot of progressive people. It's just easier to snip it right at the bud and not have to deal with weird shit like this. Weird, awkward, and let's be honest, distasteful shit like this. Listen, I've ended friendships over much less than this.
If you're a religious person, and again, take it from the religious perspective, the question is, are you glorifying something that you think is sinful?
Yeah.
So will you bake Rubin?
By the way, like, to accuse someone of being a sinful individual, I mean, the implication there is quite strong. Oh yeah, this is the best part. The video Rubin did for PragerU hasn't aged very well, so much for the tolerant left.
The right, according to...
This is a PragerU video that Dave Rubin starred in back in, like, the peak of the anti-SJW, like, Gamergate era. And back when the narrative of the regressive left was really popular, the idea that the left was actually becoming regressive while the right was becoming progressive, and we're having like a modern day party switch where the Republicans were actually becoming the progressive ones while the left was devolving into SJW scream-fueled hysteria and regressiveness, I guess. The idea that like the SJWs have overcorrected. Let's watch the clip.
To the media is intolerant of everyone, except those darned white heterosexual Christian males. There's only one problem. It's just not true. Incredibly, the left isn't even tolerant of the very people they say they're tolerant of. I can tell you that in the last few years of my political evolution, I've consistently found conservatives to be tolerant and open-minded. Don't take my word for it, though. Test it out for yourself.
You know what's actually been very tolerant and open-minded? Their wallets and their watch time on your YouTube channel. That was what was very open. Not their minds, their wallets, and their ability to give your channel a lot of watch time and a lot of ad revenue.
Go talk to some. They do exist, and they do things like watch movies, travel, and eat ethnic food. You know, regular people things. You know what I found out?
Eat ethnic food, regular people things. What?
The right, much more than the left, believes in the notion of live and let live. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the true definition of tolerance. I'm Dave Rubin of the Rubin Report for Prager University.
Live and let live. Am I right, Dave Rubin? This right here, this segment, what I'm talking about here, sort of retreading, is the alt-right rabbit hole. Just not in the same way as I normally have. Obviously, I could cover the fact that, like, Dave Rubin's a little spineless cuckboy who can't defend himself against his own friends who believe that he's a subhuman degenerate, and he can't stand up for himself. You know, I could go on about that. But instead, I feel like it's worth talking about something that a lot of the people in my audience that are part of marginalized groups that were once part of the right, at least when I mention wanting to do a segment or a video on it, always get really excited. And you know what? I'm hitting you with it today as a surprise. This is unironically the part of the alt-right rabbit hole that the online left and BreadTube are too afraid to talk about. They're too afraid to talk about the fact that, yeah, marginalized trans people, gay people, women, POC, indigenous people, any of them could just happen to fall into the wrong beliefs on issues pertaining to their lives and their lived experience even. And if they give way to that concession, if they concede to that, that kind of hurts a lot of people on the online left and a few arguments they've been making lately, if you've been keeping caught up on the drama as of late. So they aren't really willing to make that concession, which means this part of the alt-right rabbit hole doesn't really get talked about. The part of the alt-right rabbit hole targeting young, even progressive-minded, marginalized youth. I already said young, so I don't know why I repeated youth. I was being very, very pointless with that. Anyway, it exists, and there are people who are probably better equipped to talk about it than me. As a matter of fact, I believe that a friend of mine, a Pillow, actually plans to be putting out a video at some point in the future talking about how he got radicalized to the right by the content on YouTube and whatnot. And, Pillow is black, so we're not talking about like a white boy, straight, cis, whatever, right? Like, we're talking about somebody who doesn't fall into that traditional demographic that you usually hear about in your normal, the alt-right pipeline, documentary video. And I think it's worth talking about. I think it really is worth talking about that there is going to be a whole generation of LGBT, POC, and women, LGBT, just to go down the list, right? People who are going to come into this, next voting generation or whatever with surprisingly conservative views. It happened when, Dave Rubin was at his peak as like the largest conservative gay figure I could possibly think of at that time, besides maybe Milo. Milo was also really popular at that time. There was this big narrative being pushed at the time that the right was becoming far more acceptable or accepting of LGBT identities, that it was purely the right-wing economic side of the policy that was what they were fighting for, and that they'd abandoned the old culture war issues of old, and that during 2016, in the Trump election era, a very common narrative at the time was that the Democrats were the ones that were pulling everything back to discussions about whether or not the right is going to take away women's rights to get abortions or gay people's rights to marry or yada yada. And it was this whole narrative about how the left is being hysterical about it, how the right, Trump is the most pro-gay president we've ever had. That was an unironic narrative that was extremely popular and parroted online constantly at that time. And it seems like as we move more into what I personally believe to be a repeat of, Gamergate, or at least that time, a rhyming event in history, an event that will, a time in the history of the internet that is approaching us that I think will rhyme quite similarly to the Gamergate era, I should say. To be as broad as I possibly can be. When that comes around, and as we see it coming along, as I think it is, I think we're going to see a whole new niche of that content get big again and start to gain a lot of popularity. And it's worth talking about. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like. It helps me, the video, and the channel out more than you can even imagine. It only takes half a second. It's totally free, so please consider hitting the like button. And of course, if you want to see more from my content on this platform, then please consider hitting the sub button and ring the bell icon so YouTube actually tells you if I go live or upload a new video. By the way, usually these videos that you see uploaded on my channel are actually segments cut out of my live streams. If you want to see content as soon as it's made at its best, not when it's, you know, sort of like the cold reheated leftovers uploaded as independent videos in the channel, make sure to watch the live streams. Keep an eye out for them. Ring the bell icon. Turn on reminders when you see them pop up and you're recommended on YouTube. I love having you guys come out to the streams. Having a lot of people there always just kind of makes me, I don't know, something about the viewer count going up makes me funnier and talk faster and just generally stream better. It's almost like the more people watching, the more powerful I get. So yeah, come stop by the stream sometime. I don't normally ask this at the end of segments, but since this is an offline one, I figure, you know, why not ask now? Anyway, and of course, if you want to follow my social media, it's all linked down below in the video and stream description if you are watching a stream. You can follow my Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, as well as my fan Discord, linked down in the description below, of course. And if you want to support me financially, there are links down below as well to do that. But with all that said, if you enjoyed this video and you've got some decent amount of enjoyment out of it, please consider leaving a comment. Some form of engagement always helps the channel. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and have a good one.